The scent of cinnamon and roasted turkey hung heavy in the air, a comforting blanket woven from years of tradition. Outside, the late November chill had settled over Westport, Connecticut, frosting the manicured lawns and turning the bare branches of the oak trees into delicate skeletal patterns against the pale sky. Inside our house on Maplewood Lane, the warmth was palpable. The hum of conversation, the clinking of silverware, the low murmur of football on the den TV. It was Thanksgiving, and for 22 years, Thanksgiving at the Hayes house had been the epitome of perfect upper-middle-class American life. My name is Sarah Hayes, and until this Thanksgiving, my world felt as solid and predictable as the tides in Long Island Sound, just a short drive from our picture-perfect town. We lived in a house that looked like it belonged on a postcard, a grand colonial with white columns and a sprawling backyard. My father, Robert Hayes, was a quiet, steady presence, an architect who built things that lasted. My mother, Diane Hayes, was the dazzling star of our family galaxy, effortlessly elegant, charismatic, the kind of woman who could charm anyone within 5 minutes. She orchestrated our lives, our holidays, our very image, with flawless precision. And I was their loved daughter, navigating my early 20s, happily settled with my boyfriend, Ethan Miller. Ethan had fit into our world seamlessly. He was charming, handsome, with an easy smile that put everyone at ease. We'd been together for 3 years since college, and I saw a future with him. A future that looked a lot like the life I'd grown up in, maybe a little less formal, but built on the same foundation of love, trust, and family. He was here for Thanksgiving, of course. He'd become a fixture at our family gatherings, welcomed with open arms by Diane, who seemed to genuinely adore him. "He's such a good catch, Sarah," she'd said more than once, her eyes sparkling with approval. Looking back, maybe I should have seen something then. Maybe there were tiny cracks in the perfect facade I chose to ignore. A hand lingering a moment too long, a shared look that held more than casual warmth, a strange tension that would dissipate the moment I entered the room. But I was too happy, too trusting. Why would I look for darkness in the people I loved most? The house was filling up. Aunts, uncles, cousins, close family friends, the usual crowd. The air buzzed with greetings, laughter, and the delicious anticipation of the feast to come. I was helping Mom in the kitchen, arranging cranberry sauce in a crystal bowl, while Ethan was supposedly helping Dad set up extra chairs in the dining room. Mom was in her element, her movements graceful even as she juggled multiple tasks. She wore a stylish apron over a silk blouse, her blonde hair perfectly coiffed. "Sarah, darling, could you grab the gravy whisk from the drawer by the sink?" she asked, her voice light and cheerful. As I reached for the whisk, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from my Aunt Carol, asking if she should bring extra pie. The answer is always yes. I replied quickly, and as I put my phone down, I saw Mom's phone lying next to mine. A notification popped up, a preview of a text message. The sender was listed as E, my Ethan. The preview read, "Can't wait for dessert tonight." My stomach did a weird flip. Dessert? It was Thanksgiving dinner. Everyone was having dessert. Why text Mom about it? It was a little odd, maybe a private joke. But something about the wink emoji felt off. It felt intimate, not between a boyfriend and his girlfriend's mother. I picked up her phone, my heart starting a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. I knew her passcode. It was Diane's birthday. My fingers trembled slightly as I entered it. The messages opened to a thread with Ethan. My blood ran cold. The messages weren't about dessert. They were explicit, flirtatious, and recent. Very, very recent. Messages from yesterday, messages from this morning, messages talking about meeting up later, about how much they missed each other, about things I couldn't even comprehend. My mother, my boyfriend. The phone felt heavy in my hand, suddenly alien and repulsive. The warm kitchen, the comforting smells, the sounds of happy family felt distant, muffled. It was like the world had gone silent, except for the frantic, disbelieving pounding in my own ears. I scrolled back, my breath catching in my throat. Weeks of messages, months. It wasn't new. It wasn't a mistake. It was an ongoing, calculated betrayal. They talked about me, about how easy it was to deceive me, how sweet I was, how I never suspected a thing. They laughed at my trust. A wave of nausea washed over me, so intense I had to grip the counter to stay standing. The crystal bowl of cranberry sauce blurred before my eyes. The perfect Thanksgiving, the perfect family, the perfect life. It was all a lie. A carefully constructed stage set, and I was the naive fool playing my part while the real disgusting drama unfolded backstage. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, the phone screen a glowing testament to the destruction of my reality. The kitchen door swung open, and Mom breezed back in, a platter of hors d'oeuvres in her hands. "Sarah, darling, are you all right? You look a little pale," she said, her voice still light but a flicker of something, annoyance, suspicion, crossed her face as she saw her phone in my hand. My voice was a strangled whisper. "Mom, what is this?" I held up the phone, the screen still showing the messages. Her eyes widened for a split second, the mask slipping. Then it snapped back into place, harder, colder. Her expression didn't change much outwardly, but her eyes became sharp, calculating. "What is what, dear?" she asked, her tone dismissive, as if I were a child caught playing with something I shouldn't. "These messages." "With Ethan," I said, my voice gaining a shaky strength. "Mom, what is going on?" She set the platter down with a deliberate clink. "Sarah, you shouldn't go through people's phones. It's a terrible breach of privacy." Her voice was calm, controlled, but the air around her felt suddenly toxic. "Privacy? Mom, this is my boyfriend, and you. What are you doing?" "It's not what you think," she said, the classic line delivered with chilling composure. "Ethan and we've been talking about a surprise for you, a trip for your birthday. These messages are just planning details. He needed my help keeping it a secret." My laugh was a harsh, broken sound. "A surprise trip? Mom, the messages are talking about meeting up, about missing each other, about how easy it is to lie to me." My voice cracked. "Don't lie to me, Mom. Not now. Not about this." Her eyes narrowed. The charming mask was gone, replaced by something hard and cold. "Sarah, you're overreacting. You're being dramatic. You're seeing things that aren't there. Ethan is your boyfriend. I'm your mother. We were planning something nice for you. Why would you turn this into something ugly?" Her voice was laced with ice, a subtle threat beneath the words. She wasn't just denying. She was attacking my sanity, my perception. Gaslighting. The word echoed in my mind, a concept I'd only read about, now a terrifying reality. "I'm not overreacting. I saw the messages, Mom. They're right here." My hand holding the phone was shaking violently now. "Put the phone down, Sarah," she said, stepping towards me, her eyes fixed on the device. There was a predatory edge to her movement. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I cried, backing away. "You're sleeping with my boyfriend." Her face hardened further. "Don't be ridiculous. I would never. You're hysterical. You need to calm down before the guests see you like this." "Guests? You care about the guests? About appearances? While you're doing this?" Tears streamed down my face, hot and stinging. The scent of turkey suddenly made me feel sick. "Sarah, give me the phone," she commanded, her voice low and dangerous. She reached for it. I flinched away, clutching the phone like a shield. "No, I won't. Everyone needs to know." Her eyes flashed with pure fury. For a second I saw a glimpse of something truly ugly beneath the polished surface. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "Try me," I choked out, my voice trembling but firm. I backed out of the kitchen, the phone still clutched in my hand, leaving her standing there, her perfect facade cracked and splintered. I stumbled through the hallway, past the den where I could hear Dad's quiet laugh at something on TV. Ethan wasn't there. Where was he? Probably hiding somewhere, maybe with her. The thought made bile rise in my throat. I needed air. I needed to think. I needed... Dad. I found him in the living room, adjusting the angle of a framed family photo on the mantelpiece. He looked calm, oblivious, a world away from the storm that had just erupted in the kitchen. Seeing him so solid and trustworthy was like finding a lifeline in a raging sea. "Dad?" My voice was barely audible, ragged with tears. He turned, his face softening with concern. "Sarah? What's wrong, honey? You're crying." He came towards me, his brow furrowed. I couldn't speak at first. The words were too big, too ugly, too impossible to say out loud. I just held out the phone to him, the screen still open to the messages. He took it, his expression puzzled. "What's this?" He looked down at the screen, and I watched his face change. The puzzlement faded, replaced by confusion, then shock, then a dawning horror so profound it seemed to age him years in seconds. His eyes widened, his mouth fell slightly open. He looked up at me, his eyes full of pain and disbelief. "Sarah? What?" His voice was a broken whisper. "It's Mom and Ethan," I managed to say, the words tearing through my throat. They're having an affair, Dad. They've been for months." He stumbled back, bumping into a side table. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just stared at the phone, then at me, back and forth, as if trying to reconcile the image on the screen with the daughter standing before him, with the wife he thought he knew. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken devastation. Then he let out a sound that wasn't quite a sob, more like a deep, guttural groan of pain. He sank onto the nearest couch, the phone still in his trembling hand, his gaze fixed on the wall, seeing something I couldn't. The carefully arranged family photos on the mantelpiece seemed to mock us, images of a happiness that was never real. "Diane?" he breathed, his voice full of utter heartbreak. We sat there for a while, just the two of us, surrounded by the festive decorations, the sounds of arriving guests growing louder in the background. The contrast was unbearable. Outside, the world was celebrating family and togetherness. Inside, our family was imploding. "She tried to lie," I whispered, wiping tears from my face. "She said it was a surprise trip. She tried to make me think I was crazy." That seemed to snap Dad out of his daze. He looked at me, his eyes sharp with concern for me, not just his own pain. "She did that?" I nodded, fresh tears falling. "She did. She didn't even care that I was hurting. She just cared about getting the phone back, about keeping the secret." A quiet fury hardened Dad's features. The passive man I knew seemed to recede, replaced by a protective father and a deeply wounded husband. He looked at the phone again, his grip tightening. This can't stand, Sarah." "I know," I said, my voice firm despite the lingering sobs. "Everyone needs to know, Dad. They can't get away with this. Not here. Not now." The thought of Diane and Ethan mingling with our family, accepting hugs and smiles while carrying this disgusting secret was unbearable. Dad looked towards the sound of the arriving guests, his jaw set. "You're right." He took a deep breath, the kind of breath a man takes before doing something incredibly hard. "We have to tell them." "Now?" I asked, my stomach clenching. The thought of the scene that was about to unfold made me feel faint, but the alternative, letting them get away with it, felt even worse. "Now," he confirmed, his voice quiet but resolute. "They're all here. There won't be another chance like this. It has to end." We stood up, two figures united in a shared nightmare. The air in the house felt thick, charged with the impending storm. We walked towards the main living area, where the bulk of the family was gathered, a sea of smiling faces, unaware of the truth lurking beneath the surface. Mom was there, circulating with a plate of appetizers, her smile wide, her eyes scanning the room. She saw us approaching, our faces grim, and her smile faltered. Ethan was nearby, talking to my Uncle Tom, looking relaxed. He saw me, saw Dad, and his smile vanished, replaced by a look of apprehension. He knew. He must have known I wouldn't stay silent. The room was loud with chatter. Dad cleared his throat, a small sound that was swallowed by the noise. He cleared it again, louder this time. "Everyone," he said, his voice trembling slightly, Could we have your attention for a moment?" A few people turned. Mom moved towards us, her eyes flashing a warning at me. "Robert, what is it? Is everything all right?" Her voice was sweet, laced with a false concern. Dad ignored her, his gaze sweeping over the faces of our family, the people we loved, the people who trusted us. His voice grew stronger as he spoke, though the pain was evident. "There's something important we need to tell you all, something that's happened in our family." A hush fell over the room, the cheerful chatter dying down. All eyes were on us. Mom was standing stiffly beside Dad, her smile gone, her face pale. Ethan was frozen by Uncle Tom, his eyes wide with panic. Dad looked at Mom, his expression one of profound sadness and betrayal. Then he looked back at the assembled family. "Today," he began, his voice steady now, "Sarah discovered something. Something terrible. Something that shows the trust in this family has been broken. Broken by someone we all love and someone we welcomed into our home." He paused, the silence in the room deafening. Every eye was on him, then on Mom, then on me, then on Ethan. "Diane," Dad said, his voice breaking slightly as he said his wife's name, "and Ethan." The words hung in the air, heavy and shocking. A collective gasp went through the room. Whispers erupted, disbelieving murmurs. Mom's face contorted with rage. "Robert, how dare you? This is insane!" "He's lying!" she shrieked, turning on Dad, her perfect facade completely shattered, revealing the ugly truth beneath. "He's lost his mind. Sarah is hysterical. She's making things up." "We have proof, Diane," I said, stepping forward, my voice clear and strong despite the tears still on my face. I didn't need the phone anymore. The truth was enough. I saw the messages, months of them, talking about me, laughing at me. I looked at Ethan, who was now trying to edge towards the door. Ethan confirmed it. He admitted it. Ethan flinched as all eyes turned to him. I, he stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence, his face ashen. "Admitted what, Ethan?" Uncle Tom asked, his voice stern. Ethan just shook his head, looking trapped. Diane lunged forward, trying to grab my arm. "You little liar! You're jealous! You've always been jealous!" Dad stepped between us, shielding me. "Don't touch her, Diane." His voice was cold steel. "It's over. The lies are over." "Over?" Diane screamed, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. "Nothing is over. You think you can just ruin everything? Ruin my reputation? Ruin this family?" She gestured wildly around the room, her perfect hostess persona completely gone, replaced by a furious, cornered animal. "You think anyone will believe this ridiculous story?" "They'll believe the evidence," Dad said calmly. "And they'll believe Sarah, because Sarah doesn't lie, Diane, unlike you." The room erupted. Relatives were shouting, some demanding explanations, some yelling at Diane, some comforting crying children who didn't understand what was happening. My Aunt Carol rushed to my side, putting an arm around me. My Uncle Tom was confronting a cowering Ethan. Diane was screaming, her face red, pointing at Dad and me, spouting accusations and denials. It was a scene of utter chaos, the perfect Thanksgiving shattered into a million pieces. "Get out," Dad said, his voice cutting through the noise, directed at Diane and Ethan. "Get out of my house, now." Diane scoffed, a bitter, ugly sound. "Your house? This is my house, too." "Not anymore," Dad said, his voice firm. "You made your choice. Get out." Ethan, seeing his escape route, mumbled something incoherent and practically ran out the front door. Diane stood defiant for a moment longer, her eyes blazing with hatred, sweeping over the faces of the family members who were now staring at her with shock and disgust. Then, with a final, venomous glare at Dad and me, she turned and stormed out of the room, presumably to gather some things before leaving. The noise slowly died down after she left. The silence that replaced it was heavy, suffocating. The smell of turkey suddenly felt wrong, tainted. Family members looked at each other, at us, their faces a mixture of shock, pity, and confusion. Aunt Carol hugged me tightly. "Oh, Sarah, honey, I'm so sorry." My cousin Mark came over to Dad, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Dad, Robert, I can't believe it." The rest of the evening was a blur of hushed conversations, awkward departures, and the slow, painful realization of the wreckage that had been made of our family. Some relatives stayed, offering support, helping us clean up the remnants of the uneaten feast. The house, once full of warmth and life, felt cold and empty. Diane left quietly later, without another word to Dad or me. Ethan was gone. Just like that, two central figures in my life, in our family, were gone, leaving a gaping, bleeding wound behind. Dad and I stayed up late that night, sitting in the silent living room, the Christmas tree lights outside the window, a cruel reminder that another holiday season was upon us, one that would be irrevocably changed. We didn't talk much, just sat together, two survivors in the wake of a devastating storm. The bond between us, forged in shared pain and the decision to face the truth together, felt stronger than ever, a fragile lifeline in the darkness. The days and weeks that followed were incredibly difficult. The perfect facade of the Hayes family was gone, replaced by the stark, ugly truth. Word spread quickly through Westport. In a town that valued appearances as much as ours did, a scandal like this was seismic. There were whispers, pitying looks, awkward silences. Some friends distanced themselves, unable or unwilling to navigate the mess. Others, the true friends, rallied around Dad and me. Diane tried to spin the narrative, of course. She called some relatives, claiming Dad had had a breakdown, that I was a troubled young woman making false accusations. But the evidence was undeniable, and Dad and I were united. Most people saw through her lies. Her charm, once her greatest asset, now seemed like a cruel joke. Ethan disappeared from my life completely. He blocked me on social media, changed his number. I heard through mutual friends that he'd left town, unable to face the fallout. Good riddance. The pain of his betrayal was immense, but the pain of my mother's was deeper, more complex. It wasn't just romantic betrayal, it was a violation of the most fundamental trust, the maternal bond. Dad started the process of divorce. It was messy, painful, filled with legal battles and the dismantling of a life he had built over decades. He was heartbroken, not just by the infidelity, but by the realization that the woman he loved, the mother of his child, was capable of such deceit and cruelty. But he also found a quiet strength I hadn't fully appreciated before. He was determined to protect me, to rebuild his life, to not let Diane's actions destroy everything he had worked for. I started therapy. It was essential. The betrayal had shaken me to my core, making me question everything I thought I knew about love, family, and trust. My therapist helped me process the trauma, the anger, the profound sense of loss. I learned that it wasn't my fault, that I hadn't been naive, just trusting, and that trusting wasn't inherently wrong. The problem lay with the betrayers. The house on Maplewood Lane felt different, tainted. The kitchen, once the heart of our home, where I had discovered the truth, now felt like a battleground. The living room, where Dad and I had sat in silence, held the echoes of shattered dreams. We considered selling it, starting fresh somewhere else, but it was Dad's home, my childhood home. We decided to stay, to reclaim it, to fill it with new memories built on honesty and resilience. We repainted the kitchen, changing the color, trying to wash away the feeling of that day. Months passed. Thanksgiving came and went. The following year, Dad and I had a small, quiet dinner, just the two of us. We cooked together, laughing sometimes, sharing stories. It wasn't the grand, perfect affair Mom used to orchestrate, but it was real. It was ours. The turkey tasted like hope, seasoned with a hint of sadness, but overwhelmingly grateful for the bond we shared. Diane tried to reach out a few times through intermediaries, once even a carefully worded email. She never apologized for the affair itself,